Hey, I'm Jermaine Morris here with Berry Accius.
Check.
Here with the new installment of the Say Something podcast. It's a podcast where we get together and say something about what's going on out here in this world.
Say something.
Something we say stuff about, subjects that we think that everybody should be saying something about. So how you doing today, Barry?
Oh man, I'm blessed, brother. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful day to be your neighbor.
Put that sweater on, change your shoes.
Oh man, still house slippers, still sandals. It's going down. You know how it goes.
Yeah, we just talk about stuff that we think that we should be saying something about, stuff that happens out here in these streets. And I think that that's important, that there's a lot of subjects that go unsaid, stuff that goes unspoken, and stuff that we just look the other way on. And I think that this is supposed to open up a dialogue that when you hear it, you don't just listen and just kind of, oh, okay. But stuff that you want to talk about amongst your people.
No doubt. I believe that, you have to say something. So here's a great platform for us to say something.
All right. Say something about, so there's been a lot going on out here in the news. Like a lot. And the theme that I kind of got when I've been kind of seeing the different news stories, there's one of my favorite movies, and I appreciate it because of the dialogue, was a movie called Lucky Number 11. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Yeah. That was a good little joint.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's like Morgan Freeman, Lucy Liu. There's a bunch of folks in the movie.
The white kid that was really they were trying to make him to be the next big thing.
Nah, this was Bruce Willis. It was
and the other white kid.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but the kid was the dude that they were trying to make kill each other's sons.
But what I'm saying is, they were trying to package him as like the next.
Oh, as an actor.
Yeah, the next.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know. Yeah. I don't remember the dude's name.
He was the one dating, the Asian girl that you were talking about.
Oh, okay. All right. That being said,
I don't remember his name though. He was at.
I think he was Josh something.
Yeah, he played in Sin City, and he was the guy that.
I never even saw that one.
You've never seen Sin City, but you see this movie?
Yeah, this movie. I like a lot of bad movies, but that's another story. So
Sin City is a classic, dog. Gotta watch it. It's on freaking cable right now.
I'm just saying, I don't even have cable. I'm different.
You ain't got a Fire Stick?
Nope. I don't even mess with cable. So, but in any event, why I appreciate of this movie, the dialogue in it is great, but there's a theme that's throughout this entire movie, which it's a phrase that I always use amongst my folks whenever we see this happening out in life, and it's a theme that's called the Kansas City Shuffle. And the Kansas City Shuffle, if you're not familiar, it's old days they used to have like grifts and hustles and like plans, and they all have their own little name. But the Kansas City Shuffle is when you make everybody look left, you go right.
Yeah.
So whenever you see it in life to where, they put the smoke over your left shoulder, secretly they're doing something over your right.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in our society. And so what I noticed looking at different news stories this morning and the stuff that I've seen that's happened over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, sir.
I saw nothing but Kansas City Shuffle. And the make you look left has been Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, they've really, I think, focused on more of, and it's crazy how they even changed that narrative. They created a narrative about the flag and patriotism, when in reality, it's about racism, injustice, police brutality, but they switched that. So they did a 42 fake on that one. Yeah.
So in case you've been under a rock, Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, he has been in his silent protest of what he deems to be the atrocities and injustices that are performed in this country. He's been originally sitting, but now taking a kneel during the national anthem before football games. And he sat through the entire preseason, and it didn't get caught on until the third game of the preseason. And since then, he's gotten a lot of media backlash, and they've addressed the unpatriotic behaviors of this quarterback. And since then, a lot of other athletes in other sports, all the way down from Little League to Pop Warner football.
Oh, it's catching on.
Yeah, they've been
definitely catching on.
Taking knees during the national anthem. So it has grown as this silent protest. But why I preface it to the Kansas City Shuffle is because while all these news stories were breaking, Colin Kaepernick or Colin Kaepernick associated.
Yeah.
There's been a bunch of other things going on in this country that have just been being hidden in plain sight.
Yes, sir.
So while everybody's been focused on if this quarterback, who's now the backup quarterback in San Francisco, if he's going to kneel or not, or what other athletes are kneeling, or what soccer player or whatever, a couple of things that have been happening in this country, which I think are important to be addressed. And one of them, we're out here, we're in Sacramento, we're in Northern California, so one that's pretty close to home is the Oakland Police Department.
Woo!
So this is not only, it's not just like a local Northern California based story. It's been nationally covered, but sparsely overshadowed by this Jersey issue. The OPD is currently on catching hell on two fronts. So they're currently involved in a sex scandal of.
Do you really want to call it a sex scandal?
It's titled a sex scandal.
Yeah, because I don't. It's
a scandal that involves sex.
I don't know, man. That sex scandal kind of, with it being a minor and it being underage sex and it's being a process. You know what? You go ahead.
So put it in a proper framework. The OPD is under investigation and allegations of police officers being involved with not only sex with underage women, but there's also more allegations coming out of just blatant abuses of power.
Yeah.
With the OPD. But that's just the first half.
Okay.
The second half of the OPD is, and it came out in their investigation about some of their behaviors, is that in the investigations that 25% of all their body cam archives accidentally got deleted. So the body cameras that they're supposed to wear, when it comes to routine stops, when it comes to shootouts, when it comes to busts, whatever, the body cams that police officers wear, do some crazy glitch in the matrix. Through somebody slipped, they meant to press the space bar and somebody pressed escape, I don't know. But 25% of their body cam archives were accidentally, and that's a heavy quote unquote air quote, throw them up, deleted.
Yeah.
So this story has just been kind of coming and going because it's also in the Bay Area, and this Kansas City Shuffle, they're trying to clean this up right now and not let people talk about it. So what I kind of look at is that, why do we keep going for the okie doke?
Well, the okie doke, it's kind of easy because if you think about the subject of Colin Kaepernick, it is a big deal, right? And I even think that, to be honest with you, when you think about him sitting down compared to kneeling, I think it's more disrespectful if you sit down compared to kneel. So I think he's meeting them halfway by at least acknowledging something and by kneeling. Because kneeling to me shows a little bit of
respect. There's a degree of sign of respect
to
take a knee.
To be honest with you, compared to sitting down.
I just ain't getting up.
Sitting down, I love that part, you know what I'm saying? But either or, I love what he's doing, and I love anybody else that's standing up. But again, the framework of what they're trying to make us play into is this is about the flag, it's about being patriotic, which is BS. It needs to be about the social injustice. It's about police brutality, the murders, the crimes committed. And when you look at the crimes committed, it talks about when the PD out there, I don't know, it was Santa Clara, San Francisco, that said they didn't want to, they were threatening not to be able to work the games, right? That was another big, red flag. But when you look at all of this stuff that's going on, you've had secretly and slowly this same story that has been catching wind, that hasn't really imploded. Even in a sense of all of the different police brutality stories that have come and gone. Yeah. This one, when you think about it, in a sense, you may argue about certain things. The police felt they were being threatened. So-and-so didn't know if he had a gun or not, whatever. Yeah. All bullshit stories, right? Yeah. But here is a story that, bottom line, lets you know, because this young lady was being sexually abused. She was being sexually misused. She was being passed around like a blunt. You know these police officers were in the right state of mind. They were coherent. They understood exactly what they were doing. But yet we're not having the conversation. Had it been you or I or anybody else having sex with a unaged prostitute the way that these officers were doing with this young lady, it would be headline news. And again, you're not hearing this story. And when I've heard from so many different news headlines that they're not even going for the prosecution.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I haven't heard that part yet. But the why I put this in that framework is Colin Kaepernick's base of his protest is aligned with
exactly
police brutality,
yes.
and aligned with the police's misuse of their power. His whole thing is and put this framework to it too, because they always address the Black Lives Matter thing. Just so we're clear, Black Lives Matter is a group whose sole focus was focused on police brutality. So if anybody asks how come Black Lives Matter aren't involved in every other thing that happens, where's Black Lives Matter? They're focused on this. Mm-hmm. To the same accord that if you were a group that was based on human trafficking, that's what your passion is, that's what your organization is for. It doesn't mean that you don't get upset when you find out that kids are starving. Or it doesn't mean that you don't get upset when you find out that kids are getting beaten by their parents or whomever in the home. It just means that your focus is human trafficking. That's why you don't see Black Lives Matters at every event that has to do with black people. That needs to be said, because the first thing I hear about whenever there's an issue amongst black people, well, where's Black Lives Matter at? Just to put that in the framework, because that's real. Like every time, that's the first thing that, where are they at for this? That's not what they did.
But here's the thing that I'll say, not to interrupt you, but I want to say the Black Lives Matter shouldn't even have to be dealing with these things, because these things shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Like, let's really, when we want to break it on down, let's honestly look at the scope. You are telling me, with all of the shit that's happening across the board for police officers, you police officers within this area, prostitution at an all-time high for not only the young men and the women.
Yeah.
You are taking advantage of this young woman and thinking because she is a young girl, who's going to believe her?
She's a hooker, whatever.
She's a freaking hooker, and better us protect her than the pimps, because when I've heard her talking in her interviews, it's almost like she doesn't know how bad the situation really is. She knows she's got taken advantage of, but it's almost like, well, rather them than the pimps. Yeah. Right? It's almost like that. You are trying to tell me that these are the people? These are the people that are here to serve and protect? These are the people that are getting paid the tax dollars? This situation grows even deeper than what the police brutality is, because in those senses, the impulse and I think sometimes the adrenaline will take them there. But here is a situation where you've had for years, not one, not two, not three, but multiple officers having sex with this prostitute.
I think the number is in the teens.
Get out of here, dog.
And so
there's numbers that are in the teen, fucking the teen.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm framing it this way and why I'm addressing it, because Colin Kaepernick plays for the San Francisco 49ers, who until unrecently played in San Francisco. They're in Santa Clara now.
Yeah.
This is why this all ties together, why it's important. If you're not familiar or your geography is not that good, we're talking about the Oakland Police Department, which is literally on the other side of the bridge of San Francisco. So you're talking about a guy in his experience, because people talk about, well, he's got money or he's rich. Why is he talking about the oppressed people, whatever? He's talking about different forms of police brutality and the police overreaching their bounds and misusing their authority, because he was in the city adjacent to all this criminal activity going on by the police department. So this idea of he's so out of touch because he's got money, or he's so unaware he can't be oppressed because he's rich. He's saying, I'm speaking for the oppressed people. He's from Turlock, which is here too. He's not that far from where he currently works. And so he's addressing a problem. And now, while the Kansas City Shuffle, the smoke is his patriotism or his disrespect for the military, because his protest is addressing the misuse of power. On the other side of the bridge of the city that he's been at for the last few years, you've got a police department involved in sex with an underage prostitute. And then they're going to keep looking, because when IAB gets involved, when they start really investigating the police department with the police department that investigates the police department, and they start coming up with 25% of the body cam archives being deleted, you're going to start seeing a whole lot of stuff start to come to light. And then he's not going to seem so crazy.
Well, I mean, he's never been crazy to me.
But I mean,
yeah, I get it. He's never been crazy to me. And then when we talk about San Francisco, let's not forget the racist text messages that was being flown around
San Francisco PD.
With San Francisco PD, right?
Yeah.
In the midst of the police brutality and police killings that happened over there against unarmed individuals, a black man, and then as well as a black woman. So it just makes me so angry, because you have these idiotic, silly Negroes, these overzealous individuals who are yelling and screaming, being about patriotic this, patriotic that, and all of this rhetoric that people want to say about police. All police aren't bad, and this is never like what Sacramento PD always likes to say, and that's another whole story by itself. Oh, it's not gonna happen over here. We're not Ferguson. All of these motherfucking precincts are fucking corrupt, dog. And from the North Dakota PD all the way down to the Vegas PD. Because here's the thing. In order for them to continue to operate, they cannot stop crime altogether. What jobs will they have? No. If they literally stop crime, guess what? Then some of these motherfuckers would have to have another career. But the reality is they are going to be a part of the criminal behavior, because who in the hell are going to question the police? And that's why the police have way too much power across the board.
Okay, because this ties in to another story that came out this week as we continue with the theme of the Kansas City Shuffle. While you was focused on this quarterback in San Francisco trying to bring light to the overreaching powers of the police department, in DeKalb County in Georgia, there's already the investigation coming out about these quotas that these police officers were forced to use, an investigation of them planting evidence on U.S. citizens to reach their quotas that they have been sent out by their department. That they were told that they need to bring at least two arrests a day per shift. And so if their numbers weren't hitting, it was like 2 arrests. Their thing was 2 arrests a day, keep the sergeant away. And 5 arrests a day, keep the lieutenants at bay. That's the song that the police officers sing to keep their higher ups off their back. So this story's coming out now.
Say that again, man.
2 arrests a day keeps the sergeant away, and 5 arrests a day keeps the lieutenant at bay. So this story in DeKalb County, which is down in Georgia, they're saying that these investigations of them going as far as to plant evidence to make sure that they make their arrest quotas. Now, we started off with the SFPD with their racial text, the OPD with their now deleting camera footage and their sex issue with the underage prostitute. We're now down in Georgia talking about the police department. And it's once again, this quarterback not seeming to be so crazy as he's addressing this, because this even segues us into Illinois, where they just had the investigation that closed, where since 2010 to 2015, they closed now. They're paying out $15 million so far civilly to 14 cases where police shot unarmed men who they said they had firearms, where they've come back to find no gun was there at the scene. So they've got 3 cases left pending. They're going to figure out how much money they're going to pay out to those. But they've already paid out now $15 million to the families of 14 individuals who were shot unarmed, where the police claimed that there was a weapon. We're now in Illinois. Once again, this quarterback's not so crazy.
Wow.
See, that's the funny thing about the Kansas City Shuffle.
Wow.
When you get everybody to look left while you go right, you got to make sure what you having them look at left ain't real.
Wow.
You can't have any truth to what's going on the left. You just need to throw the movies where they would throw the rock to the left in the woods, and everybody walks over to the woods and dudes take off running.
Like, what this tells you, people like myself and other comrades who have been fighting this good fight against police terror, against the injustice of this system, and how power corrupts men. You give a man a little bit too much, it's just like anything else. You have too much food at the buffet, what's going to happen? It's going to get full, right? You know what I'm saying? You having a little bit too much sex unprotected, you're going to have what? A few damn babies, right? So maybe a disease or two. Yeah. Now, in the same content, how do we believe when nothing ever gets done to these police officers? I mean, literally nothing. Yeah. And we're not even talking about the Oklahoma story about the police officer who got convicted. We don't even know if he's even in prison because he mysteriously disappeared. I don't know if they found him yet. That was raping those black women, homeless women, prostitutes, whatever. And when you see that goes on, but in reality, when you look at present day, there has been no convictions for any of the murders. What do you believe and what do you think these other officers are going to do if the law is about they are the only and be all law enforcement? No one can enforce any conjunctions on laws on them. Yeah. What are they going to do? They're going to take that power and they're going to run with it. So when you see and you hear these things, you get so frustrated because you're like, all of this shit could have been prevented. Yeah. All of this stuff can be prevented because at the same time, just because a person wears a badge and says an oath, that doesn't give them a moral compass that they're going to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? They would have to be. Oh my God! Listen, if more officers were being rightfully convicted for certain things, it would be a checkmate on every other officer because the officers are like, oh no. These people are going to put us away. But you have an alignment of friend versus friend versus friend in a sense of the DA, the judge, the prosecutor. They're all in line together with the police, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, the prosecutor versus the defense, that don't really mean they're versing each other. It's just mean they're on opposite sides, but they're all working together. Yeah. The judge they're all in cahoots with each other. Yeah. And it's almost kind of like, I'm going to outdo you. Oh, well, we'll have a golf trip afterwards. It becomes a sense of who do we trust in these moments? Like, where do we go from here?
So what I look at is that if you start, typically when people start putting a bunch of energy towards something, that's what you really, I'm one for more of that. Sometimes I care more about gauging energy than necessarily your information. You can be telling me whatever, but I'm going to gauge the energy in which you put your focus on. So if you have somebody that comes out and he's speaking about the injustices done by the law enforcement department, and you come at somebody with such extreme energy, yeah. And you're so quick to want to change the narrative, that makes me want to focus on why are you giving so much energy?
Like, why do you want to change the narrative?
So badly. And so you get these different stories coming out. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on since this Kaepernick thing. We're getting ready. We're going into week 2 of the NFL season. Kaepernick didn't kind of get outed for this behavior until the 3rd week of the preseason. We're about 3 weeks deep. Mm-hmm. And this has become a global story. Kaepernick's jersey then skyrocketed to number 1, like 10-year-olds are taking knees at their Pop Warner games, and it's become a big thing. This is a lot of smoke. So what a lot of other people are realizing is that this Kansas City shuffle is going to play over for other things. These first stories were letting police-based stories slide. But there's also another story that came out that regards to the good folks of Flint, Michigan. Ugh. People who are just living on the wrong side of the street. They just keep getting the short end of the stick.
Have they even dealt with that whole water situation?
No. And if you're not familiar, catch you up real quick. Flint, Michigan is an area to where they used to get their water supply. Get your geography first. This is Michigan, next to the Great Lakes. They've got one of the most ample supplies of clean water connected to this state in the whole United States of America. So meanwhile, to save a little bit of change, they changed where they get their water from. And where they got this water to these people now, it's contaminated. It's not drinkable. You can't even bathe in it. Like, the people of Flint, Michigan are just suffering. And it's been this way for almost 2 years now. And there's just been no recourse, no recovery. So in a city that's just catching hell every which way to Sunday, they get screwed again. So in this past week, the mandate came down to the people of Flint, Michigan, where starting October 1st, 100 of these Syrian refugees that this administration has decided to give more or less asylum to will be relocated to Flint, Michigan. where the local authorities were not made aware of this until they got the memo saying, hey, in a couple of weeks, we're dropping these mother effers off at your house. So now the people of Flint, the unemployment rate is skyrocketing, can't get clean water to bathe, can't get clean drinking water to give to their babies or to their elderly or to their people, now are about to be hit with a bunch of Syrian refugees and all of the other things that come along with that. Why is this important? This is the Kansas City Shuffle. While your focus is done on this country's real big on precedence. Once they allow to do it once, it's a green light to do it again. Yeah. Flint, Michigan is just the first city because they're so disorganized that there's going to be very little backlash. Please believe they get 10,000 refugees that are coming to the United States. This is 100 in one city. If you think that they won't do this to your city too, you are out your damn mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it also reminds me of how, the influctuation of immigrants coming in. You're thinking about Miami when, what was it, Cubans, Colombians, whatever was going in, and how that just, the drug trade was going to be hectic, but it just made it even 10 times what it probably would have been if that didn't happen. But it's like all of these unthinkable things in moments where we're kind of like hoping that America and the system that we've where we've bowed down to, we've paid our taxes to, we kind of pledged our loyalty to, like, does right by us. Like, because you think in your mind like, that's not gonna happen, and that's what they play on. They play on our weak emotion of thinking like, they're cops, they would never, like, I would never think a police officer would pick up a prostitute, nor would I ever think that a government would allow dirty water. Like, have you seen that water? Yeah. Dog, it's literally like oil. You know what I'm saying? It's dirty piss water, and having it continue to happen, and then on top of that, now we're going to add some more displaced refugees in this place, struggling, full of turmoil. Like, how do you think that's going to play out? Like, I mean, we know how that's going to play out. So all you're asking is for more chaos. It's a recipe for destruction. And I think they do this on purpose because that gives them a reason to police harder. That gives them a reason to move out people. And that gives them a reason to put people in jail.
The militarization of the police department in that area is going to be heavy because you've already got a bunch of people who are upset, who are unhappy, who are getting sick, who are having problems. Now when you bring in the Syrian refugees, you already have to bring in a certain degree of military presence just to deal with that. Yeah. So now you put them in a city where shit ain't cool. It ain't sweet in Flint.
But let me go back for a second. Why are they bringing them there?
Because for whatever reason, this administration decided that we are going to take in like 10,000 refugees from Syria because of the situation that's going on there.
So it's 10,000.
I believe that's the number. I mean, I think we agreed to almost 80,000 coming from the South of Hispanic immigrants that they're giving asylum to. We getting flooded. Now, that to me in itself is not a huge issue. It really not to me. My thing is that you picked a place where it's fourth and long for people who can't even get clean drinking water for their infant children. Or the elderly are getting sick. There's no recourse or recovery. And this is what you drop on them. So unless you're doing this with massive aid and support, because they said it's going to be, you can't even you have to redo the entire piping system of the entire city of Flint to clean this up. This is not like some treatment that you can put in the water and clean it. You have to redo you have to go back to formula and restructure this entire city's water supply.
And the thing about it, when are they going to do it?
They ain't even started. Ain't nobody broke a wrench out. Ain't nobody went to Home Depot. I'm being 100% real. Ain't nobody went to Lowe's, to Home Depot. They ain't got no piping.
I'm being dead serious.
I am being 100% serious with you.
So you're trying to tell me this something, because I've reported on this a while back. Yeah. You're trying to tell me that there is nobody, there's not even a movement.
There is nothing happening in Flint.
They're still having to soak in dirty water.
They're doing what we doing. They talking about it. There is not one plumber. Roto-Rooter ain't on the scene. There is nothing going on to give these people recovery.
But yet and still, the governor's still in place.
To my knowledge, yes.
And
I believe the mayor might even still be there.
And I think the mayor
Has
resigned. And America just gave $38 billion to Israel for military aid for the next 10 years. So this is going on. So $38 billion is given.
Yep.
And you're trying to tell me that right here in America, Flint, Michigan, ain't got no clean water. They ain't even started the
process is not even underway. The Kansas City Shuffle.
This shit is crazy.
Here's the deal. As long as you keep shifting the focus, you can keep letting stuff slide.
But then how do you... And this is when we talk about being patriotic. This is how we're not. How can you be talking about, oh, he's not patriotic, the flag, when you got shit like this that is a yellow flag right here, right? This is a penalty right here. How is it that you have rogue police institutions all across the board? Like, now we're not talking. See, the thing about it, okay, you know what? Yeah, who cares? Black lives don't matter. Well, we're killing black people. All right, they're all criminal, right? What? But now we're having sex with prostitutes.
Because to stick with this, there's a reason why these stories that I picked, these are not acts of police picking out black people. All of these different cases, these are issues of this is why the picture needs to become bigger, because all these people who want to make the argument, as soon as there's a black person who gets shot, they must have resisted.
Yeah.
It's a black person.
Yeah, because there's nothing of this. This is police waking up in the morning knowing that they picking up that prostitute and they doing what they do.
So this criminalization that of black behavior.
Yes.
So everyone can sit there and say, oh, he must have been on drugs. Must have been a gangbanger. All these stories that we're referring to is not necessarily dealing with black people. This is just
corruption.
This is just of the job.
Of the job of saying we are the police and we are above the law.
And as well as how the government works when it pertains to its citizens. So when you start talking about the Flint situation, where they're bringing in the 100 Syrian refugees and they still have the water issue, the same water issue that they're having in Fresno, California.
And I just saw that.
Same.
So how soon does it not come to Sacramento?
Stockton is next. They're already having issues with Stockton. This is the same government that allowed the EPA, whose job is to police the clean water, the agriculture, all that. The EPA, the ones that contaminated the Colorado River, pumped all this crap, all these thousands upon thousands of pounds of toxic waste into the Colorado River, got it looking like old urinal water. Think about a truck stop urinal that doesn't flush. What it would look like by 8 p.m. That's what the Colorado River was looking like.
Dog, it's like there's nothing you could say that can convince me that we are in a great country that is for the people. Because all of this stuff, and then we're just talking current. We're not going to even go into the history.
Yeah, we're not talking about
current. When we have some of the most sophisticated technology, where we can do things, we can bring a robot nowadays and take care of business like no other. You know what I'm saying? Now you're looking at a situation to where you got Flint, Michigan, having the same issue that they've had for 2 years not being settled, now having it in Fresno, and we haven't even talked about what's going on in North Dakota, where they're trying to make, they're trying to...
So now,
they've
had... So the North Dakota issue is where they wanted to do the pipeline through the Native American tribe. Now, there's some stories going by that they came to some degree of a resolution, that the protests aren't going on like they were. But the issue is that they now had issues with the water. That apparently there was a pipe that was either ruptured or burst, whatever, that's already started to do with the whole big problem that they're trying to avoid in the first place and contaminated a degree of the water.
Yeah. I mean, fight for your rights.
But now take away from not even just the North Dakota issue, fracking. If you're not familiar with fracking, it's the process that you go through into the ground to get oil. But this process that they're going through the United States to try to find oil out of is contaminating the drinking water across the nation. Like this process.
So right now, what am I drinking? Contaminated water right now, man?
I don't know where that water came from, so I don't know. Here's a hustle though. We're in Sacramento, and the water that's taken from Sacramento went through a lot of Walmarts. So we were in a drought And people here in Sacramento, California were buying bottles of water from Walmart, which is the water that came from Sacramento to begin with, that you used to get for free, but you were paying $2 a bottle for. It's all part of the hustle. And why I stress the Kansas City shuffle, the hustle where people are getting blindsided. These are all things that are going on right now. So when I try to express that and stress it, and I get a lot of energy about it, is because what are you focused on? Like, what headline are you reading that you got a full tank about, that you want to take to Facebook, that you want to take to Twitter, that you want to shout from the high heavens? Take that pause and think, what are they slipping past me? Why am I seeing 50 million headlines of this one story? So the whole nation got me looking left. What are they slipping to the right?
They slipping a whole lot of shit to the right, bro.
Because they quiet is kept.
Crazy, man.
Quiet is kept. So Darren Sharper again. If you're not familiar with old D Sharp,
don't tell me that brother done got some years off.
No, how quietly he got made it to the finalists for the NFL Hall of Fame.
You know, that shit is gonna.
No, but here's why. Here's why this is important.
Shit's gonna be pushed off.
If you make the argument that you can slide these things through, that this should have been frontline news for all these women, female advocates, all these women who represent all these different groups against abuse to women, that the fact that this NFL player who got 18 years for multiple rapes and drugging girls over multiple states over multiple years, that it didn't even hit your radar because you fell for the okie doke. What else is getting slipped past you? There should have been headlines and protests all throughout the NFL for this man being a finalist for the Hall of Fame, but it didn't hit the radar because you was focused on something to the left. So if there's women's groups all over this country who are diehard supporting for women's rights, who never caught wind of this, and it was huge. The list of inductees for the NFL Hall of Fame is huge, going to Canton. So if it didn't get your screen, it wasn't on your timeline, what else is slipping past you? That's why I give light to that. There's so much stuff that you think is important to you, that you are falling for the okie doke on the daily.
No doubt. And this has definitely got to be one of it. It's like, I'm just blown away because there's so much different things. And with Darren Sharper, like, how does he even, what are these executives thinking in the NFL? Like, you know what? It's too fresh. He's a great player, but you got to ban his ass like they did Pete Rose in baseball.
They saw the Kaepernick smoke. They saw everybody looking left. And they're like, you know what? We could get this one past them. Let's just see.
I think that's just idiocy. I don't even really want to believe that. I think that there's somebody slipped up. Because how do you, if you're giving so much heat, like some of the NFL execs damn near want Colin Kaepernick up off. They've talked about him worse than Ray Caruth, right?
I get it.
Here is the rapist who just got convicted. I mean, he's got 18 years. But how do you? But
here's the thing, though.
Play into that.
No, but this is the thing, though. To get on the list of the Hall of Fame, there's guys who weren't. Just in case you don't know how this works. So 5 years after you retire or no longer play from the league, you become eligible to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir.
So they call it a first ballot. That means your first time eligible after your 5 years, you become available. Those are for the premier guys. That's for, your Emmitt Smiths, your Troy Aikmans, your Steve Youngs. This era, Tom Brady will be a first ballot inductee. Those are the names. Ray Lewis will be a first ballot inductee when he's eligible. So, but there are a lot of guys who didn't make their first ballot up, their first time up. So they've been out the league 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 years waiting for their shot. So the list of people eligible for the Hall of Fame is gone over with a fine-tooth comb. There are dudes who have not played in the league for 30 years who they're checking stats to see if they've now qualified to be eligible. Coaches, players, all that. You can't accidentally get on this list. It can't slip through somebody's fingers. It's not a clerical error. So the fact is that this went through multiple desks before this was announced. They assessed it and had enough stuff going to the left that they figured they could push this to the right.
And they really I with the Darren Sharper thing, I can't put too much energy on that because it is not going to happen. Small pebble into this big bunch of boulders that we have.
Yeah, but it's a representation of a big boulder. You look at what Ray Rice was to domestic violence of the league. This is a man who raped multiple women and drugged them. This should be the Freddy Krueger of horror movies. He should be the face of sexual assault throughout the NFL, and he's not.
He's not. And I think, and just know it's funny because I would just think that he's not a Ben Rosenberg, he's not a Tom Brady, he's not an Aaron Rodgers, he's not one of those good old boys that they don't want to kind of have that reputation, right? They're going to give the league a black eye. I don't know why they don't just do him like Ray Rice. What is the significance of just even allowing him to be on the ballot? I'm kind of confused by that. It's really kind of because it's kind of shaky ground.
It's that's what I'm saying. But what I look at that is a big picture thing of, for people who listen, who maybe you're not, maybe your daddy was a cop, so you just can't hear this, or maybe you work in government, or you have a belief about the federal government, so you can't believe that there's got to be something else involved with these things. The point that I stress why Darren Sharper means there's a significance is that this is a subject that is huge. There's multiple groups and millions of Americans who are really about this cause. And the fact that the media and the people who put the spin on what they're going to talk about have not pushed this because they rode the coattails of that should let you know what they're willing to just push past you. That if they won't address this, just like they don't address the moves of the federal government, just like they don't address the moves of the police department, think about how much stuff is getting slid past you on the daily. So that's the point that I would like people to really grasp. That Kansas City shuffle of what's being shifted past you every 24 hours. Because we've covered underage a sexual abuse of a minor who's a prostitute by law enforcement.
Yeah, now this should be headline story, headline news, CNN, Fox.
But I'm saying
they don't talk about it, man. Bill O'Reilly.
The body cams, which everyone says should be the go-to to exonerate these
Nobody's talking about that.
The racist text sent through the police department.
Nobody's talking about that.
Bringing in Syrian refugees and dropping them in a town of American citizens.
Nobody's talking about that.
Contaminated drinking water of U.S. tax-paying citizens and vets.
Nobody's talking about that.
Pushing a convicted serial rapist and giving him one of the biggest stages in professional sports.
Nobody's talking about that.
What are you falling for on the regular?
It's on a daily basis.
What are you getting shuffled on?
When you look at that lineup, you cannot argue with me about when I hate this argument. Well, if you don't like it, leave the country. Like, why am I going to leave?
Okay, real quick. Say something.
You're going to add to that one, huh?
Yes, because this is
somebody said that to you a few days ago, right?
This is one of my personal insults on this. Never in the history of this country, when women were fighting for women's liberation and women's rights, equal work for equal pay, to equal treatment to a man, never once was the campaign, if you don't like the way you're treated here as a woman, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Never was the campaign, if you don't like the way you're treated here as a woman, go to one of these third world countries where women are getting stoned and beaten. Never in the history of this country was there a campaign where you was just told, regardless of how many generations your family has been here, if you don't like the way we do things here, go somewhere else and go back to your native country. We didn't do that when it came to women's liberation movements. No. So why is that the go-to when it comes to racial injustice?
Oh, man. Because America doesn't want to talk about race. They love the status quo. They love it. It sparks it. It keeps it going. It's the shuffle, so to speak. Because if you talk about racism, then you create a change in all these other problems that we're talking about. Like literally. Yeah. We start talking about racism, then you get to the core of what has created this whole systematic oppression that so many of us live in, white or black, right?
Yeah.
So I look at it and I think it's funny because all these things are so freaking fixable, and it could be so prevented that whatever reason they don't allow prevention. They just want chaos. They rather have us talking about this than focusing on building. Like, 'cause at the end of the day, all these cases that you've said, all these cases that you've presented, I guarantee you we can come back a year later, maybe one or two of these things that we're talking about will have been handled or solved or resolved.
Yeah.
Majority of them will continue to linger on.
Exactly, because if you take the Flint, Michigan, forget the water for a second. The refugees that are brought to a bunch of people who didn't know they were coming. So they're kind of given a 2 weeks heads up.
10,000.
No, to the nation, but 100 to this town. So imagine wherever you live respectively in the United States, that you just found out all of a sudden, they're dropping them off with whatever baggage that comes with that. Just to where, and if you're in an economy that's struggling, if you're in an area where finding work is hard, you're in a high crime area, you don't need...
Like they still are going to have to try to provide. It's not like they're getting a stimulus package and like, here, chill out here for a little bit. They have to be out there in the work world. They're going to have to take food off your plate.
And here's the history about this country. Every group of immigrants that came here to get themselves established did it through crime. When you look at...
They don't want to hear that.
I'm just saying, when you look at the history of
they don't want to hear the truth.
Italian immigrants, Irish immigrants, Scottish immigrants, German immigrants. I think
the only culture that has it is blacks.
Because our crime came later. Because, and here's something too that's important. Because that comes up with stuff to say something about when they talk about the crime rate amongst black people in the United States of America. Well, here's something that's very important. Is that when other immigrants came here, their crime was in the beginning to get established.
No.
When black people when slavery was ended, and let's just go across the board, forget when the law passed, but when people really started acting right, 3 to 5 years after slavery had ended, black behavior became criminalized. What does that mean? Well, the America started to take an economic downfall after the end of slavery. You had all this free labor, now all of a sudden you don't anymore. So every state lost a bunch of money. So the goal was, how do we get it back? So they began to criminalize black behavior throughout the United States. Standing around loitering was against the law, punishable by incarceration. So it had a lot of slaves who were leaving the South to go to the North by way of the railroad. So if you're black hanging around a railroad, against the law, you're incarcerated. Black found riding a railroad, against the law, you're incarcerated.
Wow.
Black, then now you don't have any resources or recovery, so you're stealing. Multiple maximum sentences for any crime that you committed. The way that America bounced back after the end of slavery was by incarcerating black people through the convict lease program. Here's a little history lesson for you folks out there. This is why so many black males make up the incarceration rate, though the population is so small. The way that they recovered economically through the southern states and then caught on to the northern states and then moved its way out west was by incarcerating black men and putting them to work through the same convict lease system that goes on today. So what you do is you put black men in jail, then you have them rebuild the nation, except you don't have to pay them, i.e. slavery part 2. This is why black people's crimes was criminalized behavior, not necessarily laws that were broken. New laws were written to criminalize black behavior that were not written for white citizens. Wow. That's why in a 5-year time period, 95% incarcerated individuals were white males. After 5 years, it shifted to close to 90% black males. Though we were still, our population numbers didn't increase. This is why this process has continued, which is why the sentencing is not just across the board. It is not just when you go state to state. It's why two men of the same record history, meaning the same criminal history, can commit the same crime today, and black men get more time than white men. Because when you get in the convict lease program, the job that they would have paid, here's a hustle too. Just a sidebar. I know I'm a little long-winded individual, but this goes to your history lesson. White males out there, white Americans, not going to beat you up too much, but this is something that you might want to know.
Beat them up.
No.
Beat them up.
This is the proper, I like to put stuff in proper context and framework. Massive black male incarceration leads to massive white male unemployment. You may not be aware of this. This is something that you might want to take this, tell it to your friends, and then take it to your legislature, because it's going to save your economy when it comes down later down the road. When you highly incarcerate black males, you get them through the convict lease program, which has black males working from anywhere from 16 to 24 cents a day, that they pay you $16 to $24 an hour. So the more that they incarcerate black males on nonviolent drug offenses, minimum maximum sentencing for carrying weed or selling weed or standing around or whatever, or not paying child support, they do these work jobs to get out of their cells and while they're incarcerated. They take those jobs away from you. Their call center work, their factory works, all these things that you were making $16 to $24 an hour to do. Now you can't understand why you laid off. You weren't laid off because your company took the job overseas. You were laid off because they gave your job to an inmate. So massive black male incarceration is why you can't send your son to college. It's why you and your wife are about to lose your house. It's why you are sitting there struggling on welfare. So you might want to care a little bit more about the lives and issues of black people because it affects you a lot more than you know.
I mean, I think they all need to sit there and wake up, and that was a beautiful thing in how you broke it down, because at the end of the day, you hear those statistics and you realize, like, you might want to come on this side because the 1% is here to wipe everybody out.
Well, something that I always thought was important is that, and it was said to be, and I repeat it all the time, the day that more white males realize that you have more in common with your black neighbor than you do the white rich man that lives at the top of the hill, the better off you'll be.
The only thing that you guys have incorporated is your skin tone.
That's it.
That's it.
But when you live in this is the thing. When I hear about people who have racist views about different people, whom you live in the same town.
Yeah, they're pawns.
And the same. Well, you live in the same town and the same economic bracket. Like you live close enough to each other to see each other.
Yeah.
You're not doing that much better than homie.
Yeah.
Which means you are in the same. Your kids go to the same school.
That's that white privilege, though.
But I'm saying, but this is for the mentality's sake of your kids go to the same school. You live in the same tax bracket. You're in the same neighborhood.
But you're a racist prick.
But you think that but if you think you have more in common with the guy who's about 7 or 8 tax brackets higher than you,
living in the hills of Oakland or some shit like that.
Racism is the smoke. Classism is the fire. Rich people hate poor people regardless of what color you are. So
it just makes it a little bit more special that they're the darker skin tone.
Well, because if we saying something, there's a little history lesson since we're talking about history today.
Break it down, brother. You've been on your history A game. I'm feeling like I'm in high school again.
When it comes to law enforcement in regards to races, here's the issue why that there's a certain degree of contempt amongst the colors which came in class. If you go back, you'll hear people historically talk about Irish and Italian immigrants who came here who were in just as bad situation as black people for a time, which is true. And so what happened is that the enemy of my enemy became my friend.
Yes, sir. And
there was a time period where Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants, and black people in America got on the same page. And they were taking their concerns to the quote-unquote system, to the man. So a way to fix the situation was not to address everybody. It was to split my complaints in half. So what they did is, floating around the 60s, is that they gave a big incentives to Irish and Italian immigrants to the fire department and the police department. That's why if you're watching any of those old musicals, those old movies, it was always Officer O'Leary, Officer O'Callaghan, it was always an Irish or an Italian last name through the police department or the fire department. It's because they employed Irish and Italian immigrants to police the black people who were there. So groups that were on the same page for a half a second, once they gave a job and a better situation to the Irish and Italian immigrants, they then took that little leg up and began to oppress the people that for a half a second they were standing beside. That's where a lot of those lines of distinction and disdain to a degree come into play. Because when we were all on the same page, we was cool. But as soon as a certain group got a little leg up, all of a sudden it was like, I don't know you no more.
Yes, sir.
So that's why if you go back east, think about any of the old movies. There's always an Irish or an Italian last name to the police department or the guy. I said that's Officer Callahan. That's Officer O'Leary. Officer Malloy, all that stuff. Right? That's where that came from. So some of these issues, there's a reason for it.
Oh yeah.
But I'm saying past the complaints. Because a lot of times other groups hear black people speak on concerns and they just chalk it up to complaint.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to look for the big picture. Mm-hmm. Don't be so quick to fall for the okie doke.
Yeah, and in the bigger picture is I believe that you have so much corruption, so much confusion in America where, you get sidetracked. And sometimes you don't want to believe it because it seems sometimes like, this it's almost like a movie. And this movie is really playing out right in front of us. And when you break down certain statistics and we look at it on a bigger screen, you have a system that is just founded by constant chaos of the people so we can be the rats in the maze trying to find a way out while they're kind of watching, throwing cheeses on this corner, that corner, and kind of turning the maze here and there, and we just continue to run around like blindfolded in this big maze. And it's amazing that so many individuals don't think outside the box. It's so amazing that individuals will continually to try to challenge you. Or I even had a guy on Facebook that literally was trying to argue with me about the incident in Oakland, like trying to say, well, I don't want to read into the story too much, but the truth will come out. What is truthful besides you have these police taking advantage of this young lady? You know what I mean? There's nothing more. I mean, what more do we need to see besides that? So when you think about it on that kind of framework, and you look at it overall, it's a very sad moment in just America, that it almost is like we're coming close to the end. I don't know if it's going to be while we're still here, but it's not looking good, dog, because there's so many different issues that are going down. And this is the thing that makes Trump so powerful, is because his rhetoric, it sparks up the idiots who will be sitting there listening to Trump saying, oh yeah, the racists that have no kind of power, but they're just racist because they want to be racist, and they don't like black people because of all the stereotypes they've grown to inherit. And on top of that, the fact that maybe they've been mistreated by a few black folks. Might have got beat up by John, and Tyrone fucked their girlfriend pretty good. You know what I'm saying? And here you have it now, where we're at a point where we have to really look at what is being shown to us, and look at it and identify what does this mean. Because if this is a constant basis of corruption all the way around, we have to change something. Something has to change. You can't trust your government. You can't trust your police. You can't trust your next door neighbor. Something has to change. And what that change happens, I don't know. But I want to be a part of the change. That's why I do the things that I do. I speak truthful. I stay in the content of reality based. I don't trust in a system that has shown me over and over again. They will give you just a little to feel and make you feel satisfied. But in reality, you're always getting screwed.
And for the people out there who make sure that they get this in its totality, a lot of the stuff we're talking about is not racially based. Like the Oakland Police Department that's got the investigation of an underage girl, this is a corruption problem. So if you think that, oh, well, I'm not of this ethnicity or I'm of this group, that these problems don't pertain to me, you are fooling yourself. When addressing the people in Georgia who have quotas that they have to make their arrests, and they're willing to plant evidence to keep their job, this is for everyone. We're not starting with just this is strictly a race issue. Now, granted, it's been proven historically that some groups are picked on first.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, but you also have to look at the Fresno, California is not 100% black city.
Not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Even Flint, Michigan ain't 100% black city. You have men and women, veterans, office workers, taxpayers who are getting screwed all the same, who aren't criminals, don't have a criminal history, who are doing everything that they're supposed to do, quote unquote, by the way that the society has said this is how you're supposed to live your life, and they're getting screwed. Like, this is not an issue to where you can say it's those people over there or it's this group like that.
And that's what I like, in a sense, that all of this stuff is coming out. I especially, even though I hate that this kind of crime, this heinous crime, this heinous act, this sexual abuse that these pedophiles are in, and we need to call it what it is. It's not a sexual scandal, it's pedophiles, you know what I'm saying, taking advantage of a teenage girl. I don't care if she's a prostitute. I don't care if some people believe that, oh, well, she wasn't a prostitute when she was having sex. I don't care about anything like that. When someone is coming, I have had it, and we've talked about it before on our show, that we've both been approached by younger women. Yeah. And you just say, dude, relax. You just don't do it. It's like, oh man, hey, look at that guy. He's more your type. I'm actually excited in a sense of truth coming out, because it shows not only the vulnerability of these people, but the capability of them being able to do these things. So you people can start thinking outside the box and stop looking at us as we're crazy and look at this, because you can't pinpoint it, as you said, this is a race thing. No, this is a power thing. This is a greed thing. This is a selfish thing. This is a thing to where we've allowed this system to go unchecked for so long. They say this is the land of democracy, but everything that happens in this land shows that we don't have it. You know what I mean? We have people that say they want to stand up for the truth and rights, but it's only when they allow us to. They don't want us to do anything that's outside the box. They don't want a Colin Kaepernick to speak up. They don't want people like you and me to speak up. They are even doing things to readjust people talking on YouTube channels, right? And on Facebook. All your posts don't go everywhere. You know what I'm saying? They're doing all these things to quiet the masses because now the masses are waking up and they don't know how to handle it, don't know how to shift it to where it makes there's certain media outlets, certain newspapers, if they want to stay relevant, that they have to cover some of these stories.
Yeah, well, something to put in the proper framework too is the United States isn't a democracy. That's something.
So they say.
But which is why it's important for people to know. The United States of America is a republic. And so this idea the word democracy is nowhere in any of the paperwork that matters in the framework of this nation. Right. That's stuff that we say in conversation to make us feel better.
Yeah. But that's
not the way it runs. That's not the way. And he's correct too on the Facebook stuff. They have software that's implemented in social media outlets that if a certain tag is used, or they'll say if it's the Sandra Bland issue. If you type her name in, it goes through a database to where they limit the post when that name comes up.
And that's why they caught us with the hashtag. So we're hashtagging everything thinking, they'll block the hashtag. They'll block certain hashtags. They'll allow certain hashtags. So whatever they feel like they want to do.
Because you signed up for their service. It's not a question of you having the ability to speak your mind or freedom of speech issue. You are going through their service. So they get to regulate what they allow. That's why they can block your pictures or they can delete your content if they feel that it goes against what they want.
Or when the police call, they can shut down your Facebook.
Any of that. So because some people have that confused. They think that, this is my Facebook. This is my Twitter.
This is not on Facebook.
I can do what. No,
this is allowing us.
You are allowed to use through their system,
and this is allowing them to be closer to the framework of who we are. That's why don't give Facebook what they want. Just give Facebook what they need.
Yeah, these are all the different things that go on in this society. Stuff that gets shifted under the rug sometimes, and sometimes that. One thing is promoted really to make room to pass a few more things while we're not paying attention. That's why it's important to address these things when they come up. It's why it's important to have these conversations in the home as well as to have these conversations in the community. Too much silence and compliance and just going along to get along is how these things get landslided through. Policies get made and your life gets shook and you don't know where it came from. So it's not always about being on the sidelines or sitting quiet. Sometimes you do have to say something.
Say something.
So I'm Jermaine Morris, bringing you real life without the sweeteners as always, here with Berry Accius.
Boy, you was over there cutting it up on that history, boy. I felt like I was in history class again. But this time I'm getting an A. Getting an A. That's good shit.
We appreciate you for listening. You can follow us on any social media.
At Berry Accius with the Twitter, Berry Accius Facebook, and at Teen Boy with the Instagram, and blackblueprints.com. What is it?
All my stuff is the same. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Periscope, all that stuff is at JMorrisCEO. And we'll holler at you next time.
Yes, sir.